Hey, what's up guys, this is KDCloudy and Xiaomi is just left and right releasing new phones in their mid-range category. Like we got the Redmi Note 7, 8, 9 and their Pro counterparts within a single year, which is crazy. And I guess it's going to be interesting to revisit the Redmi Note 7 Pro, the phone which kind of pioneered the whole high megapixel trope we get to see nowadays, and take a look at it after one full year of me using it as my daily phone. So this review is kind of coming from a different perspective since I'm not running MIUI on this phone, but a custom ROM which is right now PixysOS, and that's something I'll get to just in a bit. You know what, let's start with the camera first. This was marketed as a phone with a 48 megapixel camera with crazy zooms and creepy ads. But yeah, jokes aside, this is a 48 megapixel Sony IMX586 sensor on the primary camera and a 5 megapixel depth sensor, which probably does not do anything. But yeah, this is a very capable camera. It takes really decent shots when you give it enough light. Sharpness is really evident on daytime shots. Dark photos do tend to suffer a little bit, but this is totally an adequate camera for the price, which Xiaomi phones usually tend to be. But by default it's downsampling and taking 12 megapixel shots, but when you actually switch to the 48 megapixel mode, it's not that big of a difference. What does actually bring a difference is Gcam. Installing a good Gcam version pumps up the contrast, boosts the colors, and does some incredible noise reduction to get the pixel look. But unfortunately it still struggles a little bit on the dynamic range department, and also if you install a wrong version you might face some issues with like desaturated colors and stuff. But yeah, it takes some digging, but you'll be fine. Install a good working version and it could be your primary camera app, just like in my case. But yeah, overall this should have been just a 12 megapixel camera with the second camera being an ultra wide or a telephoto lens or something. But yeah, the 48 megapixel and 64 megapixel or 108 megapixel trend is kind of overrated and useless, but I guess you already knew that. Now let's talk about the screen. It's a decent 1080p LCD display with a notch, and it's kind of going for the trim bezel-less design. I mean, it's not the best in terms of colors or brightness compared to an AMOLED display, but then again, it's a mid-range phone, and for a non-tech savvy person, this is a pretty good choice, no complaints. And you can tell that this is built for people who obviously give more priority to the looks, to something like a full screen bezel-less design instead of something like color accuracy and refresh rate. And it's kind of not bad, it's actually pretty good for that aspect. It's also decently big at 6.3 inches, and with a case it feels like a pretty chunky package. And the build is also good, it's just that the glossy plastic around the rims is sort of a downgrade from the matte finishes on the Redmi Note 4 and 5. But what I can tell you that this thing is not delicate at all. This and Redmi phones in general are built like a tank, and I've dropped this phone a lot on floors, on concrete, with and without tempered, and this has survived all of those times. And although there's some scuffing and scratching on the front glass, which is not bad, I think that the plastic definitely held up, and there are no visible scratches on the plastic as well, so that's pretty nice. Performance is okay for the Snapdragon 675. I mean, if you want to play PUBG, which I suck at, you can do that on HD plus high frame rate, which is, more than enough for most people, and it's great for the price. But when it comes to day-to-day performance, that totally depends upon what kind of ROM you're running. But across a couple of ROMs I tested, including MIUI 11, there's that same vibe of it runs smooth with the occasional lag and stutter. However, on a more close to stock ROM like PixysOS, things feel a lot more smoother and more responsive than MIUI. Speaking of custom ROMs, the ROM development support has been a little lukewarm contrary to my expectations. It's pretty good, like you got a bunch of solid ROMs, but honestly it's no Redmi K20 Pro, it's no Redmi Note 3. Also, I was using Pixel Experience since like that's the go-to ROM for a lot of Redmi phones, but with the Android 10 update, Pixel Experience really started to get buggy, so I switched to PixysOS, which is overall a pretty stable ROM and has good performance, good battery life, gets me through the entire day, has awesome standby times, 5 to 6 hours of screen on time on lightweight use, so yeah, that's nice. And if you want some more custom ROM options, I'll have some linked below in the description. But yeah, should you still buy a Redmi Note 7 Pro? No, you should not. Simply because there are a ton of new options like the Redmi Note 8, the Note 9 Pro, or even the Poco X2. All of these provide more features than the Redmi Note 7 Pro, but Even then, like if you're still using a Redmi Note 7 Pro, you don't need to upgrade just yet. This is fine. Xiaomi's after sales support is usually pretty good, so you don't need to worry just yet. The problem here is that because there is a new phone every 2 months which look and sound similar, a phone which just released a year ago starts to feel pretty old. In less than a year, like we jump from 48 megapixels to 64 megapixels, from dual cameras to quad cameras, from 10 watt to 18 watt to 25 watt charging, not just to pop-ups, then hole punches, 120 Hz. There's just so many phones. I mean, the Redmi Note 7 Pro still has a headphone jack, which is nice, and also has USB Type-C, which supports fast charging, which was the first in the series. And there's just so many firsts with this device. I mean, you could say this basically changed a lot of things about what we perceive in the mid-range smartphone market in India, and it's kind of pretty special that way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.